Do not let anybody tell you that you don't have a purpose. When my kids were little, my husband and I, we said to our kids, do not let anyone discourage you from you moving in your path. And I said, not even us.
Ooh, it's time for jam sessions with Tina. She's got leadership, insights, and more. Come on in. Leave the titles at the door.
Welcome to Jam Sessions with Tina. I'm your host, Tina Eliana. Today we are joined by Lesley George, who is the founder and CEO of Mosaic Inc., best-selling author, publisher, speaker, and brag confidence coach, dedicated to helping women unbox your brilliance and lead with confidence. Through coaching, publishing, and leadership development, she empowers women to amplify their voice, own their story, and show up authentically. Lesley is also the host of the Mosaic Sparks podcast, where she shares inspiring conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and change makers who are creating impact around the world. Her mission is simple: help women recognize their value, embrace their gifts, and confidently step into their next level. Lesley, thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored that you have joined our podcast today.
Oh my God, Tina, thank you so much for us having this great opportunity to just really have a great dialogue, right? And I believe whenever women can come together and have amazing dialogue of the impact that we can create and the ripple effect that we can create for the world. So thank you for having me here on your show. I'm looking forward to this great conversation.
Lesley, you have been celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month and highlighting different islands each day. What have you learned, or perhaps been reminded of, about the role culture and heritage play in shaping identity?
Such a great question. But let me start off and say that as being a Caribbean American woman, I was born in the Caribbean, born in Antigua. My dad is from Greenwood, Mississippi. And growing up in the 70s, I grew up in Maryland, grew up in Connecticut. And back then, it wasn't too cool to say you were from the Caribbean. So I teased a lot. And after a while, you kind of wanted to hide that part of you. So that's why it's so important for me now for women to find their voice because from a young age, I was hiding who I was. So this whole month of me picking a different island every month and sharing the heritage, it's really helping the parts of me heal from hiding at one time. So I've learned a lot about myself. Number one, to actually say I'm going to do it and to show up every day and actually do it. The surprising thing, so there's a lot of things that surprise me about this month. You are one of my amazing supporters. As you mentioned, you're putting together a spreadsheet. And I really and truly, Tina, I was going to do this every day and just put it out there. I did not realize that other people would find this interesting. I did not realize that other people that are even from some of those islands would say, "Oh my goodness, I'm from there. My parents are from there, and these are things I didn't know." So, one, speaking of voice, me being a champion for women for their voice. One of the things I like to say is that a lot of people look at coaches and consultants and speakers and mentors and think that they've arrived. There's no arriving. We're constantly evolving. So, this month of me making the decision to use my voice and stepping out and using it, what it has done for me. So, that's one, right? But then the other thing is reminded me that the Caribbean is not just one single experience. Each island carries their own story. Each island has their own influence. Each island communicates something different to the world. Because as with every island, I'm hearing different people saying different things and talking about their experience there. So this experience has really deepened my appreciation for the responsibility that each and every one of us carry. Now, each and every one of us have our own lane, but I believe that each and every one of us have a responsibility to share history, right? And so the other part of it is identity. So when people understand where they come from, they gain a stronger sense of pride, belonging, and confidence. That's what it's done for me. And listening to some of the comments online, reading the comments online, that's what it's doing for other people. So I hope I answered your question as to what has this journey taught me, reminded me of? Because I'm even thinking about, okay, next year, I'm definitely going to be doing it next year. I may do it with a different twist, but I'm definitely doing this next year. So this is something that will be in my wheelhouse from now on. God puts things in us, and He puts things in us. We may think it's for us. It is so much for the world. Because how do I show up as a 12-year-old Caribbean Leslie, healed? How do I show up better? How do I show up more confident, right? And that's why it's important to start the journey, because as you're going along the journey, you have no idea where you're going to end up, or what's on the path. But the most important thing is to say yes. The most important thing is to say yes and say, God, because I'm laying in my bed and God gonna tell me this is what I'm doing come June 1st. So it's important to move in it. And I don't, from since I started, I don't question it. I don't question it. I don't have the days ahead of time. The days come up that day, and then I record. And sometimes, and like I've said on some of my lives, I am gonna mispronounce a word. I may not bring the history that you know, and I may not touch on some of the things that you know. Would I've done that 5 years ago? No. Right? So it's yeah, yeah.
What aspects of the Caribbean heritage have most influenced the way you show up professionally, personally, and in service to others?
Community. In the Caribbean is really big on community. And when I say community, community doesn't have to be hundreds and thousands of people. So community is your neighbor, and really and truly knowing who your neighbor is. And we were talking earlier, and you talked about a situation that reminded me of my grandmother. I talk a lot about my grandmother, and she would take in people. And same thing, I'll wake up and there'll be people in the house. And that's what community is. And so for me, I lead with community in mind. My leadership style is with community in mind. Like, I don't have a client and they were just a client. My clients and I, we're still in communication. I was just texting one today and I said, as let's let's develop this safe word, because sometimes people may not want to ask for certain things. But I said, if you're getting to a certain point where you may feel overwhelmed as a solopreneur, just you don't have to explain anything to me. Just text me that word, and I know where you are. So my leadership professional my professional life is really foundation on community and what community looks like, and that is from the Caribbean. So every Sunday, which I know a lot of countries have done that, But I think that we're so much in a hustle culture in America that we've lost a lot of those things, so, growing up as a kid, Sundays, nothing was open. There wasn't a store open. You went to church, and then after church, you helped the neighbor with getting the Sunday meals together. So all the kids will gather at different people's house, and then at a certain time, it's Sunday dinner, right? And so it's that gathering, so with that gathering, what becomes important is relationships. Because without relationships, there's no community. And it's creating healthy relationships. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be conflicts because everybody has different personalities. But as a child, you grow up and you learn these things, right? So I think that that's one of the biggest things that I have learned from growing up in the Caribbean is community and relationships and how that takes you so far.
Lesley, much of your work focuses on helping Black women own their voices and elevate their platforms. Why do so many people struggle to recognize the value of their own voice?
However you come, whatever the package, whatever your accent, that's the package. And no matter what the naysayers may say or who around you may say, whatever, that's not your concern because you are put here. My pastor said something many years ago, and it has never left me. The person that made the chair to sit in, not for us to stand on it, not to put stuff on it. The purpose of that was for us to sit in. God made us with a purpose. Each and every one of us, we have a purpose. That's why, as you read my bio, unbox your brilliance. Unbox it. You don't need to look for it. Some of us, like we're talking about the healed 12-year-old, they may have been things that the 12-year-old, as a woman is 40, all these things got buried. So how do we help her unbox those things? You know how I'm so visual. As I'm talking about unboxing brilliance, I'm thinking about, like a sunshine, like you open this box and you have this with this glow. That's what each and every one of us is. God made. Do not let anybody tell you that you don't have a purpose. When my kids were little, my husband and I, we said to our kids, do not let anyone discourage you from you moving in your path. And I said, not even us, not even us. God entrusted us to be your parents, but God did not download your purpose. Just because I'm your parent, that does not mean that I have the right to sign off on your purpose. So be very careful. And as a parent, that's hard. That was not easy to tell your kids that. But I made sure. Why? Because I know what that's like to lose your voice, not to lose your to have your voice, but not use it, and to shrink in different situations because of circumstances.
What's the difference between having a voice and using a voice?
We all have a voice, as I talked about unboxing your brilliance. So we all have a voice. So we all have thoughts, we all have experiences, but using your voice is your willingness to express that, even when the room is uncomfortable, and even when there's no certainty, because using it in a room that may look completely different to you Fear or whatever may creep in because you are uncertain of whatever that outcome may be. So it's actually, it takes courage to actually use your voice. For anybody that's listening, they may say, Leslie, that's good for you, but I am speaking from experience of not using my voice to understanding how important it is to use my voice. So I don't want anybody listening. I don't want you listening thinking, oh yeah, she has courage and she's doing these lives and no, no, I am speaking from someone that shrunk for years. That, I even can even go back to in my career where my boss told me, Leslie, you have such an amazing brand. And this was years ago. People weren't talking about personal brands, and I didn't even know what personal brand was. And so what he said, Leslie, everybody knows you, no matter what department you work, no matter what department they know you. And I talked about community earlier, right? So relationships. So that is important. I need to know the people that come in and clean, whoever's at the top. I need to know who those people are. And because at some point in time, something may happen to my garbage can and I need some assistance for something, right? So he says, everybody knows you. So a position came up, and since I had such a great brand, I thought that, I'm going to go into this interview and I'm just going to get the job because it was in my department. So I thought, okay, just no big deal. But Tina, no, guess what happened? I didn't get the job. And afterwards, we had like an after interview type session. And here's what he tells me: Leslie, you didn't show up. You didn't show up. It was your time to shine, and you didn't. So Tina, that taught me a lesson. So that's why I say to you, for you that you're listening, I had an opportunity where my boss knew the work that I did. I did the work. I had a great brand. Everybody knew me. But in a job interview that I wanted, I could not show up. I shrunk. So that is why it is so important to use your voice, even when you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Because if I'd shown up, I didn't get the job, be okay, because I showed up. But not when your boss told you, Leslie, you should have shined in the interview, but you didn't.
You often use Disney stories as a lens for deeper conversations. What is it about storytelling that helps people better understand themselves and their potential?
Mm, oof. Let's start on Disney. Disney was fired for not being creative. Let's start there. So I'm so fascinated with his story. When Disney World was built, they interviewed his brother, and I may not say it exactly the way that it's said. It's just the gist of it. Because Walt Disney did not see Disney World in Orlando open. It was during the building, but it wasn't during the opening. And they interviewed his brother, and they said, wow, Walt would have loved to see this. And the brother basically said, Walt saw this in his mind hundreds of times. Talk about visual and stories. What better way to connect us to something visual? Because when my kids were younger, me and my husband would go to, obviously, to you taking the kids. So most families most adults, if you didn't have your own biological children, you probably went as an aunt or you went as a child. I think that Disney stories really encapsulate so many different generations. And so you think of a Cinderella story that is decades old, but there's so many lessons in the Cinderella story. So that is what fascinates me about the character's journey because it just has so much there's to me there's so much real life lived stories in these Disney stories. And so for me, and I guess I've just loved Disney for from ages, but the characters, the characters they face different emotions, they have different challenges. There's fear, there's rejection, there's all these different things that are in these stories that every person can relate to. And so that's I'm I'm speechless when I talk about Disney. I'm so fascinated with one man, one man's vision. Ooh, one man's willingness to use his voice. Because as I said, he was fired for not being creative enough. The Disney stories are so rich. They're like I said, they're so and they're generations. It they're timeless. That's the word. They're timeless.
Your mission is transforming lived experiences into lasting legacy. What's the difference between simply having a story and intentionally using that story to create impact?
Great question. So during COVID, as we didn't know what was going to happen, everybody was experiencing the same thing. I started recording myself every day. And I wanted to record myself because I wanted to hear my emotions. And then one day I'm laying on the bed on the couch, and then he says, "You're gonna write a book." So I did a co-author book with several other women, and it was for women to come together and share their experience of this experience of COVID that we're all going through. Part of that reason was this happened 100 years ago. And you had people, we read news articles and whatever. And I said, 100 years from now, this happens again. How would these women's families be able to read what they experienced? That's legacy. I heard Oprah say one time, not verbatim, as everybody knows, Oprah doesn't have any biological children. And Oprah said, legacy is the people that you touch. So a lot of people, yes, when you talk about legacy, you talk about your children. That's part of legacy. But that's not the only legacy. So that book that we did about these women's experience during I call it the panorama, during the panorama, during the panorama, that's something that's going to live on. And their grandchildren, great grandchildren, great great grandchildren can read about their experience during this thing. That's why legacy is so important for me. Legacy for me is you writing the stories, your experiences, all of that for future. One of my clients recently, we were talking, and She was saying to me, Lizzie, I don't, my story, she has an amazing, amazing story. This lady she went to jail for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, came out and now has a master's degree. And I just incredible, incredible story. When it comes out, we'll definitely do a launch and we'll definitely get together for that. But we were talking and she was saying, I don't think that people are going to read my story or they even deserve to read my story. And the one thing I said to her, I said, okay, how many grandchildren you have? She said, I have two. I said, do you think they deserve to know your story? And do you think that their children deserve to know your story? She said, Leslie, yeah, that's what legacy is about. That is legacy. So I hope I answered your question because for me, yeah, story is a story. But in terms of transforming lives and lasting legacy, you're not, it's not just your life. As I said earlier, when we talked about purpose, it's not just for you. It is for others. So as we are having these experiences, let's go back to COVID again. Whoever would read this book 50 years from now or how many years from now, they could be transported to a particular time of their family member having this experience. And as I said, I recorded myself and that's what I transcribed for my section because I wanted to capture how I felt. I've never been through this before. We never been through this before. And hopefully never go through it again. So this is a once in a lifetime type situation. So that's what transforming lives and lasting legacies mean to me. And that's why for me, it's so important to use your voice. How do you do that? You use your voice by putting in a book, writing your book, getting on a podcast, speaking, being part of a community. Those are ways of using your voice. Those are ways that you show up courageously using your voice because you never know. As I mentioned, as I'm doing this Caribbean American Heritage Month series, different people. Did I foresee that, Tina? No, did not. If you had asked me that on day one, day two, nope, no, nope, nope.
Lesley, I would love for you to share with us about your platform, where people can find you, anything you would like to share.
Thank you, thank you. So you can find me on all socials. You can find me Lesley George on Facebook, on Instagram as Lesley Listens. The company, as you can see, Mosaic Inc. The website is the Mosaic Inc. is the website for the business. And also, what else am I on? Instagram. Oh, I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Lesley George on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I go over TikTok every now and then, and the website. And as we're getting ready to wrap up, I wanted to talk about, as I said, I was going to come back to the brag. The brag is an acronym, and it means to be responsible for amplifying God's gift. And who is God's gift? You. You are God's gift. You are responsible for shouting out there everything that He has put in you. You are responsible. Nobody else is. And so that's where that courage comes in. That's where that confidence comes in. Because when I hear women say, "Oh, I don't want to brag." Oh, no, you should brag. And that's where that comes from. And that's another thing. I'm sleeping one night, and that's another thing he downloaded on me. Uh, that's where the brag comes from. Be courageous and confident in bragging on you. Because when you are bragging on you, you are bragging on what God has given you. I said to my son many years ago, after I started to unbox a lot of the things, is that I feel that if I don't amplify the things that God has given me, if I don't move forward, as we talked about saying yes in the things that God has given me, it's like me slapping God in the face and say, you made a mistake. God don't make mistakes. When he tells you to move, when you've gotten an idea, a download, move. If you don't know how to do it yourself, get with somebody that can. Tina can Tinarize some stuff. Okay, we were talking earlier. Tina can Tinarize some stuff. Get you a Tina in your circle. Find somebody that you trust, that you could share what has been downloaded in you so that you can amplify that out there in the world. Why? Because the world is waiting on that. He gave it to you to put it out. I love Michael Jackson, and we went to see the Michael Jackson movie. And there's a part in that movie that cracks me up. He's in the pool, and his brothers are asking him, what are you doing? And he says, I'm channeling, I'm waiting for a song. He says, because if I don't get it and I don't move with it, he's gonna give it to Prince. I love that line. Love that line. It is our responsibility to amplify and brag on the things that you've done, on the experiences that you've had. It is your responsibility because as you're doing that, you're using your voice. The brag is part of my proprietary framework, and it is part of developing your confidence and developing your courage in different areas. I have done workshops as well using that framework and really pulling out different parts of it. There's one part of it that I use and it's on boundaries. So I've done workshops for organizations where I would use that same framework and pull out different parts of it. And I've done that for different workshops. And I'm getting ready to do a proposal for another organization because I'm also going to help an organization with it. Because so the brag is not just on individuals, it's also on your business.
Lesley, it has been an honor having you here on Jam Sessions with Tina. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Come on in. Leave the titles at the door.